Atlanta. This is The Mic is Hot. I'm DJ Thomas, and I got Big Time, my co-host on the other end. And guess what, folks? It's Black Monday for the NFL. A lot of coaches have lost their job, and we're going to talk about it. I tell you what, we're going to start right here at home. The Atlanta Falcons has fired three of their coordinators. Three of the coordinators. I told you, Big Time. They got to go. We got to start this thing over. It's going to take 2 more years to get this thing back in line. The NFL, coaches throughout the league, 6 coaches lost their job today. It ain't right. It ain't right. But you know what? I think we're doing it at the right time. Because when we fire coaches now, we'll be in line with all the other coaches. You know, it's going to take 2 years for most teams to get back on track. And guess what? We're not the only one. That's 6 other teams out there the same way. Mind you, they're going to take coaches from other teams to get things back in order. But guess what? I'm going to go ahead and open this thing up because I got to get Big Time on the line. I think he's hotter than I am. Big Time, what you think? What say you, Big Time?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my goodness. I'm so glad to be back on the mic. The mic is hot this evening, New Year's Eve. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show tonight. I hope you're going to pop some champagne bottles, drive safe, but also enjoy this great show we about to put on. It's a great time to be in the city. It's a great time for the NFL. It's a sad time. But we're going to chop it up tonight and get this thing rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, back again. Glad to be up in the house. The mic is hot.
Big Time. Big Time, the one and only, folks. He knows all. He sees all. Some folks call him the Black Jimmy the Greek. But I call him Big Time. That's my boy. We've been rolling for a while. Well, I guess I need to bring this music down a little bit. But, hey, it's hot, boss. It's just hot. But I put it like this here. We finna jump on them Falcons, and we finna call like we see it. That ain't all need to happen this year. There's several more things need to go down. Big Time, you and I, we're going to bring it out there. I want you to tell a friend, the mic is hot. They need to download. If they haven't listened to an episode this year, they need to download this one. They need to download this episode. Don't you agree, Big Time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We could be found on Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, radio.com, CNN.com, internet. We all over the place, ladies and gentlemen.
Make sure we get it right.
All you got to do is log in. The mic is hot.
iHeartRadio, iTunes,
YouTube. Oh, my goodness.
Facebook. Buddy. Let's bring this music down a little bit. We can get deep. We just having too much fun. Folks, this is the Mike's Hot. I want to remind you again, Mike is Hot. This is DJ Thomas, and this is Big Time on the other end. The co-host, the famous co-host, the one that knows all, sees all, and for the last 5 years have been calling these games one on or either one win above or one end below. So this year we both had a bad year because the Atlanta Falcons sunk the ship. So Big Time, let's jump in this thing. I think the first thing we want to jump on is, hey, look, how you feel about all these coordinators that the Falcons had fired? Do you think it's a good thing or do you think it's a bad thing?
Well, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, and I'll chop it up this way. Let me say why it's good. You know, when you take into account that as we do the show, ladies and gentlemen, I'm on the other end watching ESPN, the NFL network, rather, and I just noticed there are 8 teams had head coaches changes today.
Oh, they have had more?
Yes,
wow.
8 teams.
Guess what? It's only out of 32 teams. That's more than half of the coaches in the NFL.
Well, it's not. I'd say about 1/3 of it. 1/3 of it. Half of it would be 15. We close to 1/3. The next third of it would be 16, and then you go from there to 21, then 32. But that's a lot of changes because what is happening, ladies and gentlemen, I believe in the NFL, you got a lot of parity going on, and where there's a lot of teams know that they have a good chance.
Uh-huh.
And another thing about what's going on, I think from what I understand, there's going to be an increase in the salary cap this year. So teams will have a little better opportunity to spend money. But with the players that's around the league now, there's a lot of talent coming out of college each year. And a lot of teams have been given the opportunity to have a pretty good team.
Uh-huh.
Well, you got to take advantage of that. And most of the time, players are not going to be the first one to go.
Right.
Coaches are. So the Falcons are right in line with what's going on around the league, and it's not so much based on what another team do, but it's also what the Falcons need to do. I like they had a great, 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 and high expectations for this team this year. We, like many other fans here in Atlanta, were very, very disappointed. And there need to be some changes starting from the top. And I agree with the move in part. What say you, D?
I agree, man. I agree. This year was off for the Falcons as well as it was for many teams out there. And owners starting to realize, and I watched this earlier, and I heard some stuff about the different teams and some of the coaches. Some of the coaches hadn't made the playoff in years, and it was just due. It was due, and I see some good coaches out there. And just because they wasn't a good coach with their team, don't mean they won't be good at another team. And I'm pretty sure that several coaches are going to be moved around to other teams and given the opportunity to bring them up. Myself, McCarthy, I wish we had McCarthy as an offense coordinator myself, but I read earlier that the Falcons I've already looked at the offensive coordinator from Seattle. I think the ex-offensive coordinator from Seattle and some other guy. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But it's due. And I spoke to you earlier. I think we said this earlier this week as we talked, last week rather, that I think they need to go ahead and make the move now. Don't wait. If we do, we already if we move our offense coordinator, if we move Greg Knapp, the offense coordinator, up to head coach. Let me get my thoughts right. I'm so excited now. We move Greg Knapp, the quarterback coach, up to offense coordinator, which he used to be the Falcons offense coordinator. I think you're losing time. It's not going to change. He didn't do it before, and I think you're going to put yourself even further behind. Like I said at the opening of the show, I think it's going to take at least 2 years for offense coordinator to get used to his offense and actually start showing some improvement. The first year will be okay, but just like last year, our offense coordinator had to understand the team, had to understand the coach, and the coach had to understand the team, where it was coming from, and the plays that they're bringing. Whether they're making a change in how the offense run or not, they need time to make that happen. And I think the Falcons, what you said was 16 coaches. How many coaches was it?
It was 8. It's 8. Well, I know there are 8 teams. I don't know how many. Usually when they fire the head coach, that entire coaching staff is gone.
Right, okay.
Usually that way it works. They're very rally.
That could be a good thing for the Falcons as well, because there's some good coaches out there, some great coaches out there.
Yeah,
I just hope they make the right one.
That could be. Yeah, that could be. So I don't know when I looked at this list, I haven't seen it. The breakdown of who was fired. I know Green Bay was on the list, and we already know that McCarthy was fired before the season was over.
We got the Jets.
Yeah.
We got
you got the Dolphins. The Dolphins,
Arizona,
the Broncos.
You got the
Broncos.
Yeah, we got a lot of teams.
Yeah.
But what I was trying to say is that it's a good opportunity, and folks. So I want to remind everybody we predominantly Falcons, but we talk about the whole NFL and concerns. But we are big Falcons fans. We talk a lot about the Falcons, and right now we're not like some stations that's going to kiss tail and say, well, this person is great, this person that's great. Well, if we see it and it ain't right, we're going to talk about it. And this show is based on opinions, folks. We look and we read. I'm a former coach myself and a former player, so we look at and we read stats and we look at things what other people are saying, and we use our own opinion. Myself and Big Time, because Big Time go in the lab, he come out with an understanding of where he think this team is going and where other teams are going in the league. So I want everybody to understand as they listen to our show, it's our opinions, and everybody got right to their opinion. I think we spoke earlier. A former player was saying something on the local radio station. I don't take their opinion on everything. Just because you're a player doesn't make you a coach. There's some things players know, but I'm saying a lot of times players study playbooks and they got to understand, how to play the game. I study playbooks, I study strategy, I study defense, I study offense like everybody else. I'm sure Big Time we have our ways of looking at it. And over the years, it has proven to be right. One thing I look at real closely, I watch these coaches and I find out that if they're not getting the job done, and most of the time they come in a press conference and they give you this line about, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. That tells me, if it's not happening, that you really don't know what's going on. You really don't understand your team, or you don't know how to coach your team. So it's a lot going on, and we welcome your opinion right now. If you can email me at themicishot@gmail.com with your questions and your concerns, and we'll definitely talk about me on the Mike is Hot. We normally go live on Facebook. Tonight is New Year's Eve, so we're not going to really jump there right now. But we had so much on our chest that we had to bring off tonight that we want to share with you guys out there. And I know Big Time got a lot. I'm not going to hold him because he take up 75% of the show once he start talking. So I'm gonna let him blow. So,
well, no, we're gonna share the mic, man. You know, we both excited about again this year. We disappointed, shall I say, about this year, but we're excited about what has happened within 24 hours after the season is over.
mm-hmm.
One is, you know, there's, you know, you and I, we've always agreed, or you highlighted, let me clarify that first. You stressed the fact that at the beginning, 2 years ago in the factor, Steve Sarkisian, you had a concern about the hire. Let's put that on the record. Dennis called that out 2 years ago that he had a concern. He didn't know what this man would do, but his concerns, and Dennis can elaborate on this a lot more, and he will, but I'm just highlighting what he said to emphasize what has happened today.
Just call me by my coach. Call me by my coach name, Thomas.
Yeah, Coach said, listen, he had a concern because this guy had not coached in the NFL before, and when after last season was over, Dan Quinn made a statement that alluded to the fact that he rolled the dice on Sarkisian, and it may not was a good hire.
Uh-huh.
He didn't come right out and say it, but what you can infer from what he said and the way he said it, that he thought he had made a mistake. Well, why didn't he do it? Why didn't the Falcons do what they did today? Well, it would have been almost obvious then that a mistake was made if he had let him go. And then number two, you could be saying, how would we didn't give him enough opportunity to improve this year. Well, last year over this year wasn't any better. As you know, watching the season, the Falcons started out real well on offense. As the season progressed, playbook got out there on them. Defense coordinator figured out how to stop them. And one glaring example of how they were stopped was, as you recall, Wrigley's pass completions and his mistakes increased, and his pass completions were dropped as the season went on. I noticed that, and that was.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. That was an example of what happened. But I agree with the firing today. However, I disagree with I agree with I also agree with the firing of the special teams coach.
Uh-huh.
This coach Armstrong had been there for a couple of years. There was talk about getting rid of him last year. It was some rumbling, shall I say, and but I believe the special team took a step back this year.
Yeah,
I was astounded by the number of times I see that the Falcons didn't get the ball in good field position. The punt returner did a lot of fair catches, and obviously on the kickoff they usually kick the ball deeper in the back of the end zone so they don't have a chance to run it out. I agree with that guy. There needed to be a change in that area. However, I disagree with Manuel, the defensive coordinator, firing.
Uh-huh.
I disagree with that in many ways because I believe he had did a real good job in the 2 years he was here. And I believe he was also a fall guy for what happened on the defense side of the ball this year, which I believe was mainly the drop-off for the Falcons on defense were mainly attributed to injuries. Mm-hmm. What say you?
I agree. Well, you know, with Emmanuel, I like you said, I disagree that they terminated Emmanuel. Sometimes the Falcons, I think, is part of a package deal. To me, if you ask my opinion, it was a package deal with the offense coordinator because they didn't want to make it look like it was just one person's fault. So they wanted somebody to share the blame, which I disagree with. Now, again, the Falcons did the same thing back 2 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl and lost. They came off and fired the defensive line coach and a whole bunch of people on the team, which I didn't understand. We lost by simple not being able to do time management and calling one bad play really lost the ball game. But you fired a lot of coaches on the team, which I didn't understand. Somebody, okay, I'm gonna say this. I think it's higher than that. Now you can say head coaches, offense coordinator, head coach, or whatever. It's higher than that. Because I hope after all this, Dan Quinn realized that his head is on the chopping block right now. That his number, he's they're looking at him real hard. So it would not surprise me, and folks remember I said this next year, it would not surprise me if Dan Quinn is not next next on the firing list next year. And the reason I say that, because when you, as a coach, when you start to think that, well, the problem is here and the problem is there, well, I disagree. The problem is actually with you as a head coach, because it's your job throughout the season, which I didn't see enough throughout the season of Dan Quinn. Well, I want to use the word Donald Trump used, fact-checking his offensive coordinator and making sure that what was going on. Because throughout the season, when we lost too many ball games by close points, less than a minute on the clock, and that's something wrong with that, folks. Yes, you got injuries, but you keep saying next man up. No. I'm putting blame on the head coach, and I'm pretty sure most of the staff is as well. But he's got to buy. He's got to buy because of all the injuries, and this being his third year coaching. But I promise you, folks, you can write it in your little book, and you can go back and listen to this episode. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you what episode it is. You want to go back next year and listen to this, season 3, episode 27. Dan Quinn, if the Falcons come out with a season, they don't make the playoffs next year, Dan Quinn will be gone. What say you, Big Time?
Totally, D. I disagree totally. With that. And I'll tell you why. First of all, the Falcons doesn't not have a history. They have a history of allowing coaches to stay around for a minute. When you look at the job for example, when you look at the job of what Mike Smith did, Mike Smith should have been gone long time ago.
How many times I said it, Big Time? How many years I said it?
And Coach, you had said that several years before. Mike Smith was here about 7 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we were doing the show back then. In fact, I know we were not. Dennis was doing the show with another co-host. But Dennis had said even on that show back in those days that he had a problem with Mike Smith. Mike Smith was the head coach of the Falcons for 7 years. Mike Smith was the head coach in Atlanta about 3 years too long. Hello, and the Falcons would not remove him.
They wouldn't remove him.
Guess what they did every year? Ladies and gentlemen? They went in there and fired offensive coordinators and changed defensive coordinators and hired. They fired everybody around him and never removed him. I draw an example to what the Braves did, and I'm not trying to say this is what Atlanta professional teams do, but it appeared that may be what's happening. Bobby Cox was the manager of the Braves for years, and every year the Braves had another reason for not winning the World Series, even though they made the playoffs. Had the top pitching staff, and every year they changed guys. Never replaced the head coach. Why the Falcons won't fire? Another reason why the Falcons won't fire, I don't believe will fire Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, this will be his 4th year in the league coming up. 2 years, you talk about a coach been in the league 4 years, and in the second year of his leadership, the team went to the Super Bowl.
Uh-huh.
Look, this is Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is the second head coach in the history of the Falcons franchise to ever even make the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
And should have won. And so they're not going to get rid of him that quick. And here's the third reason. Dan Quinn, I believe this, and this is where a lot of the problem of the Falcons. Ladies and gentlemen, as Eddie said before, we don't sugarcoat this conversation. If the Falcon organization hear it, so be it. We hope they're listening. The Falcon organization has a mindset. They want people in line with their thinking. And Dan Quinn is in line with the thinking of Mr. Blank and Dimitrov. He's in that category. He's in that family. And part of that thinking is also why Matt Ryan will continue to be the quarterback. I want to open this up. Come on now. The mic is hot, people. Y'all better get up. Y'all better get to paradise. Bring your lunch with us.
I seen the Texas from Ike. I seen the Texas. Ike. I'm not going there about Matt Ryan, and I'm not gonna make this a Matt Ryan show. Right?
Matt Ryan, we gonna go there because I'm tired of the abuse that Matt Ryan gets. But we gonna lay that to the side for the night.
Yeah.
But Matt Ryan has been labeled the spokesperson for this organization. They love him. He's there, and Dan Quinn is there, and Dimitrov there. Ladies and gentlemen, I think Dimitrov job should be on the line after this year. I think the Mitroff job should be on the line after this year. I said it a second time.
I agree
because,
with you. I agree.
Because you've been given too many opportunities to get this thing together, and you haven't done it yet.
I agree. And like I said, normally I don't agree with you on a lot of things, but some things we definitely disagree on Matt Ryan. But I'm not going to make this a Matt Ryan show, but I will add a couple of points in there about your quarterback. It's a team effort, folks. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it loud and clear. It is a team, T-E-A-M, team. It's no I in team. It's not one person. But and the coaching staff, it completes the team because the players follow the leadership of the coaching staff. And I am so sick, and I know so many fans out there I've talked to already, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it throughout the week of how things are not playing well. Every time I listen to your head coach, the only thing he says is we got a lot of injuries and we got this. But before we had the injuries, and then last year, all he wanted to say was, well, we always got next man up. So,
but you got to understand that. But you telling me, let's go back to your point you raised about him being fired next year. Here's a guy after next year would have been the Falcons coach for 4 years.
Yep. Uh-huh.
2 years after the 2 years before this 4-year end of next season, he took his team to the Super Bowl. This man has, number one, this man has brought a culture here particularly on the defense side of the ball. On the defense side of the ball. Ladies and gentlemen, if you know anything about football, offense win you games. But guess what? Defense win you championship.
Absolutely.
And what Dan Quinn has brought to this team is an identity. There's an identity that the next man up, we play fast, we play physical. The Falcons have a very good defense. There is no way any fan can judge this season correctly and fairly without including that injuries played a factor. You cannot judge this team this year fairly. If you do, you are wrong. Now, do we use injuries as an excuse? No. But you cannot tell me, ladies and gentlemen, that the Falcons with a healthy defense couldn't have got 3 more wins. Come on now. You telling me, ladies and gentlemen, a Falcon with a healthy Devontae Freeman couldn't have got 2 to 3 more wins. And 2-3 more wins, people would have put us at 10 wins. Now, given the last 3 games were games that the Falcons were playing hard, maybe their opponent wasn't playing as hard, and it wasn't that important to their opponent. It was important for the Falcons to leave on a winning note and so many other factors. But then you cannot tell me the Falcons would have had a better record with a healthy defense.
They maybe would have got a couple more wins, but that don't mean that it got any further. If you make the playoffs and you barely make the playoffs, or you in the playoffs and you lose the first ball game, just like I said about the New Orleans Saints, they're rolling pretty good.
Okay.
But when the playoffs hits, next week starts a brand new NFL season, folks. That playoff ain't a regular season, and anything can happen. The bottom line is lose or go home. I tell people, you know what, they looking good right now, and I remember 1 year we looked real good. We win the playoff, but as soon as the playoffs start, and you go in there, it's a whole different ballgame, whether you're playing at home or away. But what I'm saying here, number one, when you're talking about Dan Quinn, he's the head coach of this team. He's not necessarily. We know he's a good defensive coach. We brought him in as a defensive coach, and he was the main part of reason this team went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. But when you're the head coach of the team, you're responsible for making sure that your other coaches are doing what they're supposed to do and everything lines up. Now, I watch these games, and I watch them. I record them, and I go back, and I break them down, and I look at little things. I watch the quarterback. I watch the coaches, and I watch the play selection. My biggest thing this year was, the play selection. I said I was going to say a couple things about your quarterback, is that I believe.
When you talk about
I believe
that he the MVP.
Hey,
he the MVP, man. Right?
Not this year. He ain't. Not last year. He wasn't either. Okay, but that was then.
His numbers. His numbers are equal. His numbers are equal to the year they went to the Super Bowl. In fact, they're better. They're better than they went to the Super Bowl.
So is Julio Jones, but they had a losing season. You asked the question, why he didn't make the Pro Bowl? The reason he didn't make the Pro Bowl because his team lost. It's not. That's the reason he didn't make the Pro Bowl. If we had a winning season, if we didn't make the playoff, it'd have been no doubt they'd have voted him in the Pro Bowl. Don't blame me. Blame the committee. Blame the team. Blame what happened. See, it don't matter what your numbers look like. Your numbers go into the stats and they go in the books. But if you don't win the ball game, you can have better. You can have more yards, more passes. I look at the stats and I look at all the quarterbacks out there. But how many of those quarterbacks in the playoff? It don't matter.
There are players in this Pro Bowl.
It don't matter.
Who team did not do very well. Let me tell you who 2 players are. The Atlanta Falcons. They have a tight end and a receiver that's in the Pro Bowl, and their team still lost. So you can't just say your team lost or win determine whether you go to the Pro Bowl or not. I'm almost also making your point. You said that be the case, Eddie. Why did Matt Ryan go even though his numbers are great? I don't know. I haven't looked up that research yet, but I know this for a fact. I looked at Matt Ryan's season yesterday, at the completion of the season. Matt Ryan had a better year, yards, touchdowns, several categories better than it was the year he won the MVP. He had a very good year. Do you know something that he did where he led the league at? Mm-hmm. Do you know Matt Ryan had fewer interceptions thrown than any quarterback in the league?
Okay.
Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
He threw the least amount. He threw one interception yesterday. That was number 7.
But that defense gave up more yards than probably most teams in the NFL as well. If you look at that.
Yeah.
Right?
So, but you can't go in there, and it's not about him.
Matt Ryan for the season.
But Matt Ryan, that's why I fight for him.
I'm not blaming Matt
Ryan. I think what ownership is done, and we got to be careful with these firings. A lot of times the firing, are basically they use the firing as a scapegoat to send the fans a false message that we trying to improve the ball club, and you're not. If you're gonna tell me right now, Dan Quinn and Dimitrov go out here and pick guys to replace the guys that they got rid of, and these guys are in the same family on the same thinking that the guy that's left, what tells me that they're gonna do better than the guy that they already had? Hello. You know, they said they would never. It's been rumored. It was said when McCarthy was fired that the Falcons probably would never hire McCarthy as an offensive coordinator because he's a strong-headed guy who like to make decisions, and he's going to go against probably what the Falcons expect.
That's what they need. That's what they need. They need a.
And that's where the problem come in at.
They need somebody to come in with the logic and make it happen. And I'll say this, and I'll say it, and I've got many people out there probably agree with me, and I'm sure just as many probably disagree with me. They need somebody to come in here and take the charge of this offense, just like Shanahan did. I mean, Ryder White was a good player. I like Ryder White just like I did Julio Jones. But if you're going to come in here and make some changes, as long as you make your team to the playoffs and to the Super Bowl, I have no problem. Nobody complained that year when they went to the Super Bowl. But I need somebody to come here right now and be able to work with our quarterback to make sure we're calling the right plays and we're getting the ball in the end zone. So and I think the Falcons are heading in the right direction when they terminated this offense coordinator we have right now because a lot of times it wasn't working.
But you're exactly right. But I don't know whether they're gonna go in and do what we believe they ought to do. You know, they want to go out. I wouldn't be surprised. I hope and pray this doesn't happen. But I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the Falcons can't go out there or decide that they can't find an OC out there. They'll move Greg Knapp back up to where he was before. I wouldn't be surprised they're doing that, and they'll feel like we don't want to change the offense. We want Matt to continue to do what he's doing. We don't want to challenge the status quo, and that's where they go wrong at. See, the Super Bowl is won starting from the front office. It's not starting from the field level. It's starting from the office.
And that's something that Dan Quinn would do. That sounds like something Dan Quinn would say. We don't want to change or we don't want to do that. And that's what's going to be.
That's what he did when he went and got Sarkisian.
That's what's going to get.
That's why he failed when he got Sarkisian.
That's what's going to get him out of here.
He went in there instead of him going and getting somebody. Obviously, I can understand coaches who say, "I worked with this guy before. I kind of know his history. We got to get along first before we can, work together." Well, I kind of agree with that to some extent. He went out and hired Sarkisian when this dude had not a day in the NFL of running an offense.
I said it.
He hired him because he was familiar with it from Miami.
I say it? I didn't like it at all. I couldn't understand how they would bring somebody here.
You said it, ladies and gentlemen. I got to be the first one to put on the mic for D because he said it. He had doubt about it 2 years ago. He had doubt about it when I was all excited. Even this year, he came into this year saying, "You know what? I have a concern about the offense because of Sarkisian." When the preseason started, he said, "I have a concern about the preseason because they're not playing guys. They're logging around like they're real good, and I don't see much difference in what they have done in the offseason." Meaning they didn't go out and pick up anybody big. They picked up Wrigley, but Wrigley is a rookie, and guess what? They didn't need Wrigley in this offense.
Nope.
They really didn't need it. They would have loved to. They had to replace the slot receiver that went up to that they got rid of the year before. But to make your first pick, which was number 8, a wide receiver That was a shock to many people. We had to grow to like it, and we was excited when it happened, but we had to go, wait a minute, that's not a position of need that you picked up. And so, oh my goodness, I just don't believe the Falcons want anybody to come up in there and challenge what Dimitroff and that camp is thinking. And the assistant offensive coordinator, you know his name, the assistant offense, they feel like they got all the answers. So when they hired Dan Quinn, they knew and they expected, and Dan Quinn walked right in there, and he's right in line with their thinking.
Yeah.
Right in line with their thinking. Dan Quinn, I don't believe 100% he had the power to say, my call is final.
And he don't. One thing I said to you before, I don't see Dan Quinn on the sideline talking to Matt Ryan. I don't see him really talking to his offense coordinator. And I'm talking about I'm not necessarily talking about from the TV. I'm talking about from being at the game and watching him. I don't just see, guys. I'm not like most people go there and just watch the game. I watch the sideline. I watch the coaches and see what they're doing and see if they're doing their job and what's happening when you go 3 and out and you go back to the sideline. I look at the quarterback going to pick up the tablet. Is he going to walk around? I look and see what the coach going to do. Is the coach going to talk to him or what's going on? And it's a lot of stuff. I like I said, I am happy. And like most fans, I am happy for this change. I'm excited about it. Yeah. I am waiting to see who they're going to bring in. And I promise you, it might not be the next show, but
it's so important. You raise a great point. How do you have a coach, for example, how do you have a head coach in the biggest game of the year of this franchise history in the Super Bowl, and he gets in a news conference after you done lost, said, I listened to the transaction between Matt Ryan and the offensive coordinator, and I didn't want to interrupt the fact that what they were doing when I knew or had some reason to believe that it might have been now after the game is over wrong. I mean, to slow the offense down. Yep. He's afraid, or he's in this position that says, I don't interrupt that. Okay, I get that. If you don't want to do it in the game, I get that. But at some point, you got to get in your offensive coordinator face and say, hold up, wait a minute. Lock the door, turn the lights off, pull out the film, and look at what's going on and say, hey, guys, what was that? I don't see Dan Quinn doing that because that was not what Dan Quinn was hired for. That's why the Falcons would never hire a McCarthy. They would never hire the head coach that was fired from New York a couple of years ago. All these fired head coaches, they would never hire them on their staff, period, because they don't want anyone to challenge what they believe they're doing right. And Dan Quinn is very likely that they're going to go hire OC that's going to come in here and do just what this other guy have done. I hate to sound repetitive. I hope I'm wrong.
That's why I
wouldn't be a bit surprised.
That's why one of the guys on there
won't hire Greg Knapp. They'll move Greg Knapp up. Watch.
If they do, I'm gonna come out live. We're gonna talk about it. And I hate to say it, but it is what it is. And I know one of the coaches they had interviewed for the job was a coach from Seattle. One of the coaches that coached at Seattle, I think he was offensive coordinator when Dan Quinn was there, and they interviewed him about the job. So I'm tired of this buddy stuff. I know you want people that you know. I know you want people that you can that you worked with before in the past, but you got to get somebody in that they can get the job done. But if he does, I hope that you guys can communicate. And let's see a team effort. One thing I say, a lot of Atlanta Falcons don't like the New Orleans Saints, but what I see from those guys, I see camaraderie, man. I see camaraderie with the coaching staff, with the players, the offense, the defense. Those guys come together and they playing well, man. And we haven't had that in 2 years, 3 years.
I see a head coach. Yeah, let me add to that. I see a head coach that run things the way he want to run, and he does a good job.
Absolutely.
He's sending that message. He'll get into a coach on the sideline face if they do something that he doesn't agree with. Let me ask this question, D, as we talk about this. What do you think about the Falcons going to hire a former offensive coordinator for them in the personage of the head coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who was fired?
I disagree. I don't think you should bring anybody back that's been here before. We got a new head coach. We got a new regime, and we're doing
but
things different.
We won with him, D. We won with it.
Well,
what if he worked with that other guy?
There's a possibility they might interview him for a job. You ask me my opinion. I think we go in a different direction. I think we need to get back in the direction that we were going in 2 years ago when Shanahan was here. I know we can't get Shanahan back, but we need to get somebody here. What appeared with me with more than anything that Matt Ryan and the coaching staff, they were all on the same page. Your quarterback's supposed to be ahead of your team. And I like what I saw with Shanahan and Matt Ryan. I saw them sit down together in a press conference, and they talked about how well they worked together and how he was able to read the defense by Shanahan showing them certain things that he wasn't familiar with. Or, because Shanahan's been in the league a long time. I prefer an offensive coordinator that's been in the league a long time, but kind of is doing some of the same things. They have the same type of program that we have, running the same type of offense or whatever. But I mean, Matt Ryan doesn't appear he's not against that. But I just the last offense coordinator we had, he didn't have the knowledge. I'm gonna call like I see it. He didn't have the freaking knowledge. Yeah. So you got somebody here. Matt Ryan was teaching him.
He didn't have that's right. That's right.
And you ask me, they brought Greg Knapp in last year to teach him. So that didn't work. So you need to. So if you don't fire both of them, if you don't fire both of them,
that was a confirmation. Yeah, that was a confirmation that they didn't feel comfortable with him.
And I said that long time. I said that last year. I said
they went in and rehired a guy that can baby. Yeah, go ahead.
When they first hired him, I told you, they brought him in just to help Sarkisian and do his job better. I never seen, you never seen, everybody I talked to, have you ever seen Matt Ryan sitting down talking to Greg Knapp? Have you seen Greg Knapp telling Matt Ryan what to do? No.
Yeah.
That's a title, just a figurehead, you ask me. The bottom line, man,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
And Matt, even though Matt is a fiery guy, Matt is a more of a competitor than people like to give him credit for. But Matt still doesn't have that spirit, I believe, of one that says, you know what? If the offensive coordinator sends a play in, I don't care how good it is, I don't care what the situation is in the game, I'm going to change it. He just doesn't have that type of in him. That doesn't mean that's a bad thing, but he gave, in my opinion, to say that another way, he gave Sarkisian too much respect.
Yeah, he did.
You know what I mean?
He did.
He really did.
Even though he might know what's wrong, he still ran the play anyway. That's not good.
Yeah,
I've seen coaches on the sideline. I forgot who it was. It was a team I watched probably a week or two ago. You might have saw the same coach. The game, the coach called a play. The player just looked at the sideline and shook his head, and they changed the play because the player knows what's going on in the field. Now I give Matt Ryan credit for a lot of things, but I think that the offense coordinator, he and the offense coordinator got to be on the same page because there's some things that he can't run. There's some plays that he can't do, and I'm not slamming him for that. I mean, you can't. There's short quarterbacks that can't hardly steal the line, and there's tall quarterbacks that can steal the line that can throw and can run or whatever, scramble. But we know Matt can't run. We know he can't scramble. I mean, we know he can't throw. We can't throw deep. So play to his strengths, not his weaknesses. Go ahead.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You're exactly right. I'm just agreeing with what you're saying. Go right ahead. You hitting it right on. I can't say more.
But that's what I want to see. Until we see that at the Falcons next year, whoever the coach is or not, until we see that a coach comes in and play to a quarterback strength. That's why him and Shanahan, they work well together. They talked a lot. They even said that they talked a lot. So they were on the same page most of the time. And I'm pretty sure Matt would have said, "Hey, that don't work," and he was able to change the play, or whatever. But we're gonna have to make some changes next year. Another thing. Let me reflect back a little bit to this past preseason. Preseason, like I said, what are we doing? We're not even playing like we act like somebody's gonna give us the championship because they didn't play players. They held them out, and you know what I always said. Hey, preparation, conditioning.
Yeah, they didn't run a lot of their plays. Their special teams look bad. And here's another thing that was so glaring. And this is why Dan Quinn, you're right, takes a lot of the blame, even though I still don't think he'll be fired next season. They were so in tune with thinking that they had a great team off on their first team. They played most of their backup guys throughout the preseason, okay? And I guess what it came down to when the season started after about the fourth or fifth week in the season, they had to put the same backup guys in there.
Back in the game.
And these guys were literally garbage when it come through the most of the season. Yep. The Falcons lost 5 straight games in a row. I mean, although they were close, they were close games, but they still lost them.
Close ain't good enough.
And the head coach failed when all the injuries occurred on the defense side of the ball, particularly. He failed to make significant moves that would shore it up to keep the season going. He said, well, we're going to ride it out because he felt like the backup guys were good. He may have knew they wasn't good enough, but he didn't want to show how bad his selection was in picking these guys and not playing them.
He couldn't say it. He had to roll with the punches, man. He had to roll with the punches.
It was an ugly season, ladies and gentlemen.
Ugly.
We finished 7-9. We finished second in division. We beat everybody in the division twice except New Orleans, losing to them twice. And we should have won the first time we beat them. Now, if the
you just made a good point. Something I didn't remember. You brought it up. We did beat everybody in our division twice, except for New Orleans.
We beat everybody twice.
We should have beat New Orleans at least one ball game. That would have made a major difference right there.
And guess what? As banged up as we were, ladies and gentlemen, we were beating them in the second game till there was some huge turnovers by our offense, particularly the one going before halftime when Julio Jones got the ball. He took such a hard hit, he lost the ball. And New Orleans does have a strategic tactic of trying to pull the ball out before they even tackle. They do that a lot. I noticed they do that, but we should have beat them at least one time. But we can go back and say what we should have, could have did, but it was just a horrible season. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, this team is too talented for us to be winning only 7 games. This team is too talented for us to have went into Pittsburgh, Cleveland, went into New Orleans, and scored 16, 17 points. We got too much offensive talent to be scoring the few amount of offense that we have been scoring throughout this year. And I gotta believe that the Falcons gotta recognize their future is right now.
There you go.
They have a Pro Bowl
I'm glad you said that.
MVP, future Hall of Fame quarterback in his prime. Matt Ryan is 33 years old. I can see Matt Ryan playing to the age of 39 to 40 years old. Let me throw this in. Tom Brady is 41 years old, had one of his best seasons he had as a pro.
Yep.
And guess what? The New England Patriots are right back where they were every year he's been there at this time. So Matt Ryan have played 11 years, ladies and gentlemen. This man has missed 3 games in his whole tight career. That's stamina. That's a straight workhorse. I believe in him. We got the man to take this team to the Super Bowl and win it. We got to make the right pieces around. The Falcon cannot go back and hire the same. The Falcon got to hire them an OC that if he's not older or whether he's younger, they got to have an OC that will get in Matt Ryan's face and say, Matt, you cannot keep doing the things you're doing. You cannot keep doing that. You cannot keep taking a sack when we're in field goal range and now we're out of field goal range. You can't keep looking guys in. Can't keep throwing the ball forcing the ball into Julio Jones when you got all these other receivers. There's so many things I can name. I was arguing with a colleague of mine earlier today. The thing that Matt Ryan is doing, they can be fixed. It ain't like he can't do them. I would expect for Matt Ryan to say,
offensive
okay, we're going to have offensive coordinator.
Oh, offensive coordinator, like I said before.
I would expect the Falcons to go hire offensive coordinator to go, we're going to have an offensive OC that's going to cause Matt to run. Matt Ryan can't run. You can't put him in something that he can't do. But somebody can get in that film room and close that door and lock it and drop them lights down and get that pointer and say, Matt, look at this, Matt. Look at what you're doing. Look, Matt.
And nobody's doing it. Nobody has done it.
And guess what that GM can do? That GM can go right now in this draft and say, you know what? If I get what I need, I'm going to look down in this draft somewhere and I'm going to pick me a backup quarterback. And I'm going to let this backup quarterback quietly put him out there and say, you know what? That's our future. Let Matt Ryan start thinking, wait a minute now, hold up.
Yep.
I got a $100 million contract with these dudes. Yep. But they might trade me for it's over, and I don't want to play nowhere else. So I think I better change some of the stuff I'm doing.
He don't have no fear. He got his money. He got a team. They ain't got a backup quarterback. He know they need him. So what he does, he do what he do and walk off the line and drop his head or whatever. But you're right. I said that many, many times before. Well, let me ask you this question. I know we've been jumping on that over and over again. I'm not going to slam Matt Ryan. But in the draft, give me 3 or 4 good positions you think we need to get in the draft, and what position should we start with? We talked about that the other day.
Well, let me preface that. my answer by saying this first. The biggest thing that we got to do first and foremost, we got to re-sign Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett is coming up for the contract. He's a defensive guy. We got to keep him. We can't let him go. He's already told the Falcon organization he's not taking a hometown discount. He's an Atlanta guy, played at Clemson. We gotta sign him. I believe the Falcons will sign him. The next thing we gotta do, we gotta make sure that we fix this money in such a way that we cannot put ourselves in a position where we are hurting. Number two, we need to really, really, really take a hard look at Julio Jones, look at where his mindset is, and look at where our money is. And if those two things are in the right place, we got to eat Julio Jones in. We got to make Julio Jones a Falcon for life.
Whoa!
We got to do that.
Did you say what I thought you just said, man? Did you say what I thought you said? Make him a Falcon.
But you heard what I just said before I said it. We got to make sure that he's willing to do that, keep his body up. That means work on himself off the field and keep himself up. And we got to make sure it doesn't hurt the team. Now, next year, from what I understand, the salary cap is going to be raised in the NFL. So there's going to be money there probably that wasn't there before. But in an effort to make sure that we can sign Grady Jarrett, we can sign Julio, and then have enough money next year to make sure that we sign Dante Jones, may need to let go. We got to let go either true front or offer or both. We got to let go of them to show up some money. Both of them guys don't need to be on this team because they're not fit for what they're getting paid for.
Y'all heard it, folks. That was big time, and I'm telling you, the big clock in the world said we got to wrap this thing up. He got a lot more power. I know he got a lot more deep down inside of him. Hey, we rocking this thing, baby. The Falcons got to make some changes this season coming up. I'm gonna say a couple words. And I'm gonna let him close this sucker out. But I just want you guys to know that we love our team. We love our Atlanta Falcons, but we want to see them win. We cannot stand the fact that New Orleans Saints might be coming up here for the Super Bowl. So I want you guys to just think about it. Next show, I'm going to do it live for you. Big time. Close the show for me, baby. Please close the show. Let me know. Let the people know how you feel.
Oh, baby, I feel so good. Thank you for allowing me to voice my opinion on this hot night tonight, Dennis. The coach, the Falcons' future is so bright. I got to wear sunshades all the time. I feel good about what's coming up. We just got to tweak this thing just a little bit. We made some good moves today by getting rid of these coaches, bring the right coaches in here. We get number 14 pick in the draft. Let's continue to build this ball club, and I feel great about next season. Whoa, we coming back strong in the air, baby. Rise up.
Rise up, baby.
Let's go Falcons.
I'm DJ Thomas. That's big time. This is the Michael's High, and we out, y'all.